It's not about getting that 10,000 steps all in one sitting.
Such an arbitrary thing, right? Everyone's like, oh, 10,000 steps. Like, but no one's ever asked the question like, well, why 10,000? Why not 9? Why not 11?
Yeah.
And now we know why.
Your sleep routine starts from the minute you wake up, right? Mm-hmm. And you wake up, you got to set your circadian rhythm. You got to get outside, look at the sun, be outside in nature for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it takes to set your circadian rhythm to the first part of its rhythm.
Let's get to like how to optimize your health right now, especially when we're all stuck inside. I mean, for the most part, right? Like we get to go for our walk around the block like a dog, you know what I mean? Maybe 3 times a day. But for the most part, we're kind of like stuck indoors, right?
Yeah.
What can we do? Like, can you give us a little bit of information on how to stay healthy? And then we'll get into like how to even get better your immune health. But overall.
Sure. Okay. So overall, it's really the stuff that you're talking about all the time, Jen. So number one, you've got to keep yourself moving now more than ever. It's really easy to become a couch potato and just watch Netflix and play video games all day. It wrecks your ability to fight off a virus if you cannot have adequate blood circulation to all your organs and your skin and your mucous membranes. So you've got to keep yourself moving. And, I think if you don't have a step counter right now, you should get one. Make sure you're getting adequate movement. You and I, we love our walking desks.
Yeah, right.
Every day,
It's the best. It's the best.
It is the best. Go outside if you can socially distance adequately and get a good walk in. I think that's really important. I think also, the other thing that everyone now has time to do is focus on your sleep, right? Like get yourself.
Actually, I don't think so, by the way. I think if you have kids,
really?
I mean, you have kids too, but like, I don't know, who are these people that have time to be watching, like binging on Netflix and Hulu? And I'm busier now than ever.
Me too.
Being at home, right? You got to be homeschooling your kids. You got to be working, but now using technology. So now you're spending hours upon hours more trying to figure out this whole thing. Then, you know what I mean? And then you have the kids to deal with. I mean, I don't know how people are just lounging and sleeping all day. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think not having kids is a huge factor.
I was going to say, thank you. There's a massive difference between being someone who has no kids and being, because the people, you're right, the people that I talk to sometimes who have no kids, they're like, yeah, I've got nothing to do. I'm so bored. Why have you watched this? Have you done that? I'm like, watched what? Done what? No. And I'm not sleeping. Thank you very much. So, I mean, it's worse.
Your kids and my kids are the same age, and so they're at the age where when they see you, they're just like constantly want your attention, and
they demand your attention, right? You can't just be like, screw off. I want to like watch this or I want to like do that. I mean, it's exhausting.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah, I have not watched any Tiger King at all because they're on top of it. I'm not going to let them watch that. So
that's funny you said that's basically the only show I did watch, I got to say. And that's why I'm not sleeping, because I'm watching it at midnight. But then but I watched it. It took me like days and days to finish it. Oh my God, that show's crazy. But that's a whole other podcast altogether. It's like crazy. But like that's what I'm saying, like this sleep is so important. And what do people do when they are like you or like me, who have to be like on with their kids and like it's hectic and you're not able to sleep in until 9 or 10 in the morning, and you know what I mean?
So it's all about routines and finding a new routine in your life. And then when you do get to the bedroom and you have to focus on your sleep, then it's time to focus on your sleep. So, like I hate to say it, but you got to get that TV out of your bedroom and stop watching Netflix before you go to bed, especially those binge shows, because that will ruin your sleep. And so, at my household and many of my, clients and patients that I'm advising, your sleep routine starts from the minute you wake up, right? Mm-hmm. And you wake up, you got to set your circadian rhythm. You got to get outside, look at the sun, be outside in nature for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it takes to set your circadian rhythm to the first part of its rhythm. And then your sleep cycle has to start an hour before you actually get into bed. So an hour before, you got to wind down, all electronics off, and then you go into a sleep environment which is perfectly made to get the best sleep. No TV, no electronics, as dark as possible, completely dark, and having no noise whatsoever, and colder than 69 degrees. So 67 to 69 degrees, somewhere in there.
Wow.
Got to cool your room down. And so those are the high points. And there's a lot of other things you can do for sleep, but if you can just hit those high points, guaranteed to get better sleep. And I think tracking your sleep, there's a lot of great sleep trackers out there, is going to help you make those like small improvements day to day to get better and better sleep and more deep sleep.
So really, it's the same things like overall, like forget about being quarantined and COVID, but it's like the sleep, moving every day. Do you still say 10,000 steps a day is optimum, or?
Well, 10,000 steps is based on nothing, really. It's just.
I was going to say, who's even thought of 10? Why 10,000? Like, why not?
You want to know why? I know why. I can tell you why.
Yeah, so why?
The first company that came out with a pedometer was in Japan, and they based this pedometer on the pedometer. It was like one of those little electronic digital things that just clip onto you. Remember those?
I totally remember. Yeah. I totally remember that.
Watches and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So they based that 10,000 steps, because they called it the 10K pedometer. And they based it on this one study that was done on the healthiest people in Japan, lived in this little town, and they all worked in this factory. And all those people walked to work every day because there were no roads to get to this factory. And someone went there and tried to figure out why these people were so healthy. Why were they living to their 90s and into their hundreds? And they figured out it's because they walked to work every day. And so they walked from that village to the factory. It was 5,000 steps and 5,000 steps back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's why it was 10,000. That's why it's 10,000 steps, and that's why when the first pedometer that came out of Japan was called the 10K pedometer, and that's how they got that number.
Oh my God! Well, I just learned something really new. I had no idea. That's a great story. So
it's a little story, right?
It's a great story. I think it's such an arbitrary thing where everyone's like, "Oh, 10,000 steps," like, but no one's ever asked the question like, "Well, why 10,000? Why not 9? Why not 11?"
Yeah.
And now we know why. So, right. Is there an amount, or not really?
No, it's going to be different for everybody, but I think it's a good marker. I think it's an adequate amount of moving around. And really, it's not about getting that 10,000 steps all in one sitting. What you really have to do, where's my egg timer? I have an egg timer on my desk over there, my walking desk. You really get up every 45 minutes. You want me to go run and get it?
I knew you got great little hacks like this. Yes. This is what I like about you, Darshan.
Remember when you first saw Walking Desk, you came to visit me in my office.
I was actually going to say, you were the first person who I saw actually have the first Walking Desk. That was so many years ago. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And you told me what it was. And then it became like kind of cool, like 2 years later or something. You were you're ahead of the trend. That's why I love you. Exactly. And that's why I love you. You always have great information. I always learn something from you. Today I learned about the 10,000 step story, and now we're going to learn about this egg timer. So what do? You're going to set it, and
this is it. It's shaped like an egg, but you can use whatever you want, and it goes up to 55 minutes. And it's really important that every time you sit down or you're standing on your walking desk, that you do that activity for a certain amount of time, and then you stop and do something else, and then you come back and you set your timer again. And the reason for that is any activity done in too much of a prolonged state is going to cause more damage than good. All right. So walking for a really, really long time, 2 or 3 hours in a row, which I used to do when I was at my walking desk, it can cause joint problems over time. It can cause times, right? So you want to do it for 45 minutes, and then you want to stop, and then you want to do and sit down for 45 minutes, and then go back to walking or doing something else. It's called the Pomodoro technique. Actually, is actually great for even your brain health to focus for some amount of time, and then defocus, and then refocus as well. And it just keeps you moving, just mentally and physically. And It works for me just anecdotally, but I also know it works for a lot of patients. There's a lot of research behind it as well.
That makes total sense. So basically, I love that. I'm gonna use that, because does that mean then people who are marathon runners and ultra marathon guys, all these people, like that actually, people think, oh wow, you're able to like move that much, your cardiovascular system, your heart, but actually it's doing more damage than good.
Oh my God, I can't even tell you, some of the most unhealthiest people I meet are these ultra marathoners.
Oh.
I mean, they're incredible. I mean, they're absolutely incredible, but you look at them biochemically,
Yeah.
and it's almost like you're gonna die if you keep this up. You need to stop.
I agree. Like, I don't get that. Why would anyone even subject themselves to running an ultra marathon that runs 100 miles minimum at a time? Even like a marathon, like and I'm like obviously very into like fitness stuff, but I never understood the reason behind a marathon, because I knew it's bad for your joints, it's bad for your back, it's bad for your knees. What's the purpose? Like, it's just going to break down your body faster. It's good for your.
Yeah, they're certainly impressive. And I think at a certain age, you have so much reserve capacity, like in your 20s, to do this kind of stuff. It probably doesn't matter too much. But as you turn 40 and above, it's been scientifically shown that, especially in your heart, your cardiac muscle, it can get overstressed with too much exercise. And you can actually die sooner if you go longer into your years with intense exercise. And not just, I'm sorry, intense was the wrong word. Intense exercise is actually good for short periods of time,
right?
Like high intensity intermittent training. But long periods of intense exercise is really bad for you.
Like an ultra marathoner or like a marathoner. So, okay, so if you're using your treadmill desk, that's a good example. So even if you're on that and you're moving, even that every 45 minutes, you'll jump off and do something else for 45 minutes and then go back. Mm-hmm. Do you have to have that break being 45 minutes, or can it be less?
It could certainly be less. Yeah, absolutely. The next break, I mean, the break doesn't have to be any more than 15 to 30 minutes.
Oh,
but
okay.
If you want to take that pressure off your joints, you want to give your joints some time to relax. You want to rehydrate yourself, all of that.
That's great. And what's that thing called again? You said it's the Pomodoro test?
Pomodoro technique, Pomodoro.
I like that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I love that. Okay. So then let's go back. So sleep is obviously very important. Moving, walking, getting your blood circulating, first thing. You were saying something about setting your circadian rhythm. Is it, you're saying go outside first? Is that the first thing you were saying? That too is very important?
Go outside in the sun first, right? Exactly. And there's a lot of talk about grounding. Have you heard about grounding yet? Yeah.
I've heard about that. Yes. I've heard a lot about grounding.
Great. Yes. Yeah. So you know about grounding. So you want to go outside barefoot.
But tell everybody, just because I know about grounding, say what it is. Basically, it's putting your feet on the ground, basically, in
bare feet on the bare ground. Right. Exactly.
Does it have to be grass? Does it have to be grass, or does it?
No. It can be anything. Okay. It can be grass. It can be dirt. It can be whatever. Just having some connection to the earth helps to set your circadian rhythm as well. And then your circadian rhythm. There's a lot of research around the circadian rhythm right now, and a lot of great articles I can send you, but it has a lot to do with three different things. One is light. Okay. So getting the right frequency of light at the right times of day to set your circadian rhythm. Oh. Secondly, of eating. So when you eat your meals has a lot to do with your circadian rhythm as well. Okay. And thirdly is the activity level that you have. So sitting around all day wreaks havoc on your circadian rhythm, because your brain doesn't know that you've been moving. It thinks certain parts of your brain thinks that you're just still in bed, by not moving. You're like a couch potato. Your brain signals couch potato, and it has different biochemical pathways based on what signaling is getting. So those are the three things that you really want to have in rhythmic control on a day-to-day basis to keep your circadian rhythm set correctly.
So do you mean you have to eat at the same time? Do you have to be doing the grounding at the same time every day?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I would say, try to keep your meals, your grounding, your exposure to light fairly consistent, so your body doesn't get confused. I think, in the evening especially, you want to make sure that you're mostly exposed to like sunlight, sundown colors, like oranges and reds, versus LED lights that are really bright and white, that tells the cells in the back of your eye that it's morning again, and you don't want to send those mixed signals.
Wow. So what happens if someone lives in like, I'm Canadian, Toronto, Winnipeg, where I was living, it's dark 6-7 months of the year, right? And like, especially now when people are like all, quarantined to stay home, how are they supposed to get the light to do that one step? Is there other ways they can?
Yeah, so I think different areas of the world, people's circadian rhythms are set differently. And so
Okay.
it doesn't mean that everyone needs to have the same rhythm. It just, you need to be in some sort of rhythm that's appropriate for the part of the world that you live in, right? Now, what you
Right.
said secondly is really important. Now that we're all quarantined, we have to figure out, like, how do we get the sunlight in the morning? A lot of times we don't even do that in our normal life, right? You go
Right.
from your house to your car to the office, and you never set a second out in the sun. But
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's just being mindful of it and making sure you have the opportunities, even if you live in New York City, if you can get out to the rooftop of your building or just even outside for a little while, it's really helpful for setting your circadian rhythm.